The Valorian commander placed the blanket over my shivering body for the third night in a row, and I finally understood that my captors had no idea how to be cruel. I was Sergeant Marcus Cole, survivor of the Defiance crash landing on Valoria Prime, sole prisoner of a war that had killed everyone I'd served with for 6 years. The escape pod had saved my body but scattered the rest of my squad across the mountainside in pieces. When the Valorian patrol found me, I expected execution. Instead, I got Commander Scytha Velryn and her infuriating, inexplicable kindness. "You will cease this trembling," she said on that third night, her silver-blue skin catching the dim light of the holding cell. "It disrupts my reports. Then stop taking the temperature down to freezing. The environmental controls are damaged. We lack resources for repair." She stood there, tall and angular, her four-fingered hands clasped behind her back, in that rigid military posture they all seemed to share. "The blanket is adequate." "It's your blanket. I am Valorian. We regulate internal temperature more efficiently than your species." She said it like she was reciting from a manual. "Your survival increases my unit's value. A living prisoner provides intelligence. A dead one provides nothing." "Right. Strategic asset." "Got it." But I'd seen her shiver when she thought I was asleep. Valorians ran cold too. They just had more practice hiding it. The holding facility was a converted supply depot near the front lines, staffed by a skeleton crew of 12 Valorians, who seemed more exhausted than hostile. Commander Velryn was young for her rank. I'd picked up enough of their language to understand the whispers. Too young. Promoted too fast. Only survivor of the Velryn line after the Battle of Kareth. She reminded me of the green lieutenants I used to break in. All protocol and procedure. Terrified of making a single mistake, because one mistake might mean more dead soldiers. "Interrogation begins at dawn," she informed me, moving toward the cell door. "You will provide information regarding human fleet movements in the Terminus sector, and if I don't..." She paused. In the blue emergency lighting, I could see the exhaustion carved into her features, the slight droop of her secondary eyelids, the tension in her jaw. "Then I will be required to implement enhanced questioning protocols." She said it the way someone might say I will be required to shoot my own foot. "It would be preferable if you cooperated." "Preferable for who? For both of us, Sergeant Cole?" She met my eyes, and for just a moment the commander's mask slipped. Underneath was someone barely holding together. "I have read your service record. You have survived 7 major engagements. You did not survive them by being foolish." The door sealed behind her. I pulled her blanket tighter and tried to figure out why my enemy was working so hard to keep me alive. The interrogation room was a metal box with 1 table, 2 chairs and lighting designed to make everyone look like a corpse. Commander Velryn sat across from me with a datapad, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. "Fleet positions in the Terminus sector," she began. "I'm a ground sergeant. I don't know fleet positions. You served aboard the Defiant for 2 years, as security. I guarded doors and shot boarding parties. Navigation wasn't in my job description." She made a note on her datapad. "Your unit's mission on Valoria Prime. Reconnaissance." Crash kind of interrupted that. "The crash that killed your entire squad." I didn't answer. The memory of the Defiant breaking apart, of Kowalski's voice cutting off mid-sentence on the comm, of Chen's body still strapped into her seat when I found the wreckage. "Sergeant Cole?" "Yeah." I cleared my throat. "Killed my entire squad." Commander Velryn studied me with those silver eyes. Valorians didn't emote the way humans did. Their facial structures were different, more subtle. But I was starting to learn the tells. The slight tilt of her head. The way her secondary eyelids flickered when she was processing something unexpected. "You were their commanding officer, second in command. Lieutenant Park was in charge." Was. Past tense. Everything was past tense now. She went down with the main hull. "You carry survivor's guilt. Is that a Valorian diagnosis?" "It is an observation." She set down the datapad. "I am familiar with the phenomenon." The silence stretched between us. Outside, I could hear the distant thump of artillery. The front lines were close, getting closer every day. Whatever resources the Valorians had, they were losing this war. I'd known that before the crash. Everyone knew it. The Valorian sovereignty was crumbling, and humanity was pushing hard to end this thing before winter. "You're the last of your family line," I said. Her secondary eyelids flickered rapidly. Surprise, I thought, or maybe anger. "You have been listening to my subordinates' conversations. Hard not to. Walls are thin." I leaned back in my chair. "Battle of Kareth. Bad one. All battles are bad ones, Sergeant." Her voice was ice. "Some are merely worse than others. Lost my first squad on Meridian of 4th E. Ambush in a valley. Watched my sergeant, my real sergeant, the one who trained me, bleed out because I couldn't get to him in time. I don't know why I was telling her this. Something about the way she held herself, like one wrong word would shatter her. They promoted me after, said I showed leadership under pressure. Felt like a punishment. It was not intended as punishment. No, it was intended to fill a hole. Dead sergeant, promote the corporal. Dead family line, promote the survivor. I met her eyes. That's what they did to you, right? Someone had to lead what was left of your unit. You were what was left. She didn't respond. Her hands were clasped on the table, perfectly still, but I could see the tremor in her secondary eyelids. I'm not going to give you fleet positions I don't have, I said. But I'm also not going to lie to you. Ask me something I can answer, and maybe we both get through this interrogation without anyone implementing enhanced protocols. For a long moment, she just looked at me. Then she picked up her datapad. Tell me about human ground combat doctrine, standard infiltration tactics, small unit maneuvers, adaptive response protocols. I can walk you through the whole manual if you want. That would be acceptable. It wasn't useful intelligence. Any Valorian officer with access to captured human documents already knew our basic doctrine. But it was something that let her write a report, satisfy her superiors, and not have to hurt a prisoner she clearly had no stomach for hurting. I had talked for 3 hours. She took notes. And when we were done, she escorted me back to my cell personally. The environmental controls will remain offline for several more days, she said at the door. I will arrange additional thermal supplies. You mean your blanket? I mean supplies requisitioned through proper channels. She hesitated. You will not mention the blanket in any official capacity. Wouldn't dream of it. That night, she brought 2 blankets. The new one was thin and scratchy, standard military issue. The other was hers, the same one she'd given me for 3 nights running, soft with use and faintly warm from her body. She left without a word. I wrapped myself in both and tried not to think about the fact that my enemy was going cold to keep me warm. The shelling started on my 8th day in captivity. I woke to the facility shaking, dust raining from the ceiling, and the unmistakable scream of incoming ordnance finding targets too close for comfort. Human ordnance. My people were advancing. The cell door burst open, and Commander Velrin stood there, sidearm drawn, her silver-blue skin pale, even by Valorian standards. You will come with me. Going somewhere? The facility is being evacuated. You are a strategic asset. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was strong, stronger than her slender frame suggested, and hauled me into the corridor. Move quickly. We have limited time. The depot was chaos. Valorian soldiers ran past us carrying equipment, data cores, wounded comrades. Through the smoke, I could see the far wall had collapsed, revealing a sky-lit orange with fire. Your forces have broken through the northern line, Velrin said, pulling me toward a rear exit. We are relocating to secondary position. You're retreating. We are relocating. Her jaw tightened. The distinction is strategically significant. Outside, the air tasted like ash and copper. 3 transport vehicles were loading up, soldiers piling in with whatever they could carry. Commander Velrin pushed me toward the nearest one, and then the world exploded. I don't remember hitting the ground. One moment I was moving, the next I was on my back, ears ringing, staring at a sky full of smoke. Something heavy was pinning my legs. I tried to move and felt pain lance up my spine. Sergeant Cole. Velrin's face swam into view. She was bleeding from a gash across her forehead, silver-tinged blood running down her cheek. Her hands were on my chest, checking for wounds. "The transport," she said. "It took a direct hit. We must." Another explosion closer. She threw herself over me, her body shielding mine, and I felt her flinch as shrapnel tore through the air above us. When she pulled back, her arm was bleeding too. "Can you walk?" "My legs are pinned." She looked down, assessed the debris, and started digging. Her injured arm moved just as fast as the other one, silver blood mixing with the dirt. It took her 3 minutes to free me. 3 minutes while shells fell around us and her own people retreated without her. "Come." She got her shoulder under my arm and heaved me upright. "There is a secondary position. 1/2 kilometer. Your arm is functional. Move." We moved. The 1/2 kilometer felt like 10. I was leaning on her more heavily than I wanted to admit, my left leg barely cooperating, and she was practically carrying me through the smoke and debris. Twice she stopped to return fire at shapes in the darkness, human shapes, my own people, who couldn't see that the Valorian they were shooting at was dragging their wounded comrade to safety. "Stop shooting!" I tried to yell it, but my voice came out as a croak. "Friendly." If they heard me, they didn't respond. Velrin didn't say anything either. She just kept moving, kept firing, kept pulling me forward until we reached a concrete bunker half buried in a hillside. Inside, she deposited me against a wall and collapsed beside me, breathing hard. "Your people," she said eventually, "have very poor target identification. We're in the middle of a war zone. You're wearing enemy colors. I am dragging a wounded human, in the dark, through smoke, while shooting back at them." I coughed, tasting blood. Not exactly a clear "don't shoot me" signal. She looked at me. Her secondary eyelids were flickering rapidly. I'd learned that meant stress, or exhaustion, or both. The gash on her forehead was still bleeding. "You need medical attention," I said. "You need medical attention. I've had worse. That is not reassuring." She pushed herself upright with a wince and moved to a supply cache in the corner. A moment later, she returned with a field kit, dropping down beside me with considerably less grace than usual. "I am going to examine your leg, Velrin. Commander Velrin. Commander ... I caught her wrist before she could start. "Your arm is still bleeding. Your forehead is still bleeding. Treat yourself first. You are my prisoner. Your welfare is my responsibility. And who's responsible for your welfare?" That stopped her. She looked down at my hand on her wrist, then up at my face. In the dim light of the bunker, with silver blood streaking her features and her uniform torn and scorched, she looked very young. "I am unaccustomed to concern from prisoners. I'm unaccustomed to captors carrying me through artillery fire. Guess we're both having a weird day." For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, slowly, she set down the field kit and reached for a bandage. I let go of her wrist. "I will treat my wounds first," she said quietly. "Then yours. That's all I'm asking." I watched her work, quick and efficient despite the tremor in her hands. She sealed the gash on her forehead, wrapped her arm, checked herself for other injuries. Only when she was done did she turn back to me. "Your leg." My leg was a mess. Deep laceration, possible fracture, definitely not walking on it anytime soon. She cleaned it, applied biofoam, wrapped it tight. Her hands were gentle. "This is suboptimal," she said when she finished. "You require proper medical facilities. Got any nearby? No?" She sat back on her heels. "The secondary position has been overrun. I had heard the communications before we lost contact. The northern evacuation route is blocked. The southern route." She hesitated. "Your forces control it, so we're stuck here. We are strategically positioned in a defensible location with limited supplies and no extraction options." Her jaw tightened. "Yes, we are stuck here." I leaned my head back against the wall and laughed. It hurt, but I couldn't stop. Here I was, wounded and trapped in a bunker, with an enemy commander who'd dragged me through hell to save my life, hiding from my own people who'd shoot us both without asking questions. What amuses you? The universe. I wiped my eyes. It has a sense of humor. I do not find our situation humorous. No, you wouldn't. I looked at her, really looked at her, past the uniform and the rank insignia and the enemy she was supposed to be. You saved my life back there. You could have left me. Your people were retreating, you were wounded, and you stayed to dig me out. You are a strategic asset. You keep saying that. I don't think you believe it anymore. Her secondary eyelids flickered. She didn't respond. How much food in that supply cache? 3 days, if rationed. Water for 4. And after that? After that, she said, one of us will have to do something inadvisable. We established a routine because that's what soldiers do. You find rhythm in the chaos or the chaos eats you alive. Commander Velron took first watch while I slept, then woke me for second watch while she rested. We rationed meals down to the calorie. She ate less than me, claimed Valorians required less nutrition, and I pretended to believe her. We avoided talking about the war, about the battles outside, about the fact that neither of us could contact anyone who might get us out of here. Instead, we talked about other things. You have family? She asked on the second night, sharing body heat in the corner of the bunker because the temperature had dropped and our supplies didn't include adequate thermal gear. Beyond your military unit? Had. Parents died when I was 19. No siblings. Uncles somewhere, but we don't talk. I shifted, trying to find a position that didn't aggravate my leg. The core was my family. Quad was my family. And now they're dead. I said it flatly, the way you learn to say these things, so I don't have family. She was quiet for a moment. Then, I had 7 siblings. 3 brothers, 4 sisters. We were a large family by Valorian standards. The Velron compound was within the defense perimeter of Kareth Station. Her voice was very even. When the station fell, the compound fell with it. My entire line, parents, siblings, cousins, elders, was eliminated in a single orbital strike. I didn't know what to say. I knew about Kareth Station. Everyone did. It was one of humanity's biggest victories, a decisive blow against Valorian military infrastructure. Thousands of enemy combatants killed. Strategic target destroyed. Medals were handed out. Nobody mentioned the families living inside the perimeter. I was commanding a patrol unit in the outer sectors, Velron continued. I received notification of the compound's destruction via automated message. One moment, I had a family. The next, I had a name and a rank and nothing else. I'm sorry. Your forces won the battle. You should not apologize for victory. I'm not apologizing for the battle. I turned my head to look at her. In the darkness, I could barely make out her features. I'm apologizing for your loss. They're not the same thing. She didn't respond. But after a moment, I felt her shift slightly closer. By day 3, my leg was infected. I tried to hide it, but Velron was too observant, or maybe too familiar with wound care, to miss the signs. The swelling, the fever, the way I couldn't quite suppress a grimace when I moved. This is serious, she said, unwrapping the bandages. Her expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in her jaw. The biofoam has failed. Contamination has set in. How bad? She didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. We need antibiotics, she said. Proper antibiotics. The field kit contains only basic analgesics. Then I guess we need to find proper antibiotics. The nearest medical supplies are with your forces. She met my eyes, at the southern extraction point. 2 kilometers from here, through enemy territory, controlled by my people. I laughed, and it turned into a cough. That's a hell of a supply run. You cannot make the journey. I will go alone. Absolutely not. Sergeant Cole, you're Valorian. In enemy-controlled territory. During active combat operations. I grabbed her arm harder than I meant to. They'll shoot you on sight. Then I will not allow them to sight me. Velron, Commander Velron. But she said it softly, without heat. Marcus. You will die without treatment. The infection will spread. Your leg will require amputation, and we have neither the equipment nor the sterile conditions to perform such a procedure safely. Without intervention, you have perhaps 36 hours. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that I'd survived worse, that I'd be fine. But I could feel the fever climbing, feel the wrongness spreading through my body. She wasn't wrong. You'll be killed, perhaps. She stood, checking her sidearm. But you will certainly be killed if I do nothing. The mathematics are clear. Since when do you care about my mathematics? She paused at the bunker entrance, silhouetted against the gray light outside. Her silver-blue skin was pale with exhaustion, her uniform still torn and blood-stained from the evacuation. She'd been giving me her rations, I realized suddenly. Eating even less than I thought. Keeping me alive at the cost of her own strength. I do not know, she said quietly. It appears to be a recent development. Then, she was gone. Time passed strangely after that. The fever made everything blur, walls shifting, sounds coming from the wrong directions, faces appearing out of the darkness that I knew weren't really there. Kowalski sat beside me for a while, cleaning her rifle the way she always did before a mission. Chen lectured me about proper combat spacing. Lieutenant Park reviewed mission parameters in her cool, professional voice. They were all dead. I knew they were dead, but the fever made it hard to remember what was real. You have to hold on, Park said, or the ghost of Park, or the fever dream of Park. The commander went for supplies. She'll be back. She's the enemy. Is she? Park smiled, and her face flickered between human and Valorian. Are you sure? I wasn't sure of anything anymore. At some point, the bunker door opened again. I couldn't tell how long Velrin had been gone. Hours, maybe, or days. She was covered in dirt and blood, some of it silver, some of it red, and she was dragging something behind her. Medical supplies, she said, her voice hoarse. From a destroyed transport. I had to improvise acquisition. You're hurt. I am functional. She knelt beside me, pulling out IV bags and medication vials. This will help. You will feel discomfort. Define discomfort, .eu. She jabbed a needle into my arm, and the world went white with pain. When I could see again, she was hovering over me, monitoring something on a small diagnostic device. Her hands were shaking. What happened out there? I encountered a patrol, human, 4 soldiers. She didn't look at me. They did not survive the encounter, Velrin. I took no pleasure in it. Her voice cracked, just slightly. They were young, frightened. They did not understand why a Valorian was carrying human medical supplies. They opened fire. I responded. She finally met my eyes. I killed 4 of your people to bring medicine to 1 of your people. The mathematics are unclear. I reached up and took her hand. She startled at the contact, her secondary eyelids flickering wildly, but she didn't pull away. You saved my life, at the cost of other lives. Welcome to war. I squeezed her hand. It never makes sense. You just do what you can for whoever's in front of you and hope the universe balances out somewhere. Do you believe that? No. I let out a breath, but I believe you did the right thing. I believe you made an impossible choice, and you chose me. And I'm not going to let that be worthless. I'm going to survive this. For them, if nothing else. She was quiet for a long time. Then she lowered herself down beside me, not letting go of my hand. We should rest, she said. The antibiotics will require time to work. Will you sleep? I will attempt it. I felt her settle against my side, her body cooler than a human's but still warm, still alive. Her breathing slowed. Her grip on my hand loosened but didn't release. I watched the bunker ceiling until the fever dreams came back, and this time when the ghosts appeared, I told them I had someone looking out for me. On the 5th day, the war ended. I didn't know it then. We were still in the bunker, still rationing what was left of our supplies, still taking turns watching each other sleep. My leg was healing, slowly, painfully, but healing. The infection was retreating. I was going to live. Velrin had been quiet since the patrol. She performed her duties, checked my wounds, maintained the watch rotation. But something had shifted behind her eyes, something I recognized from looking in mirrors after my worst missions. "How many have you killed?" she asked on the fourth night. We were sharing heat again, pressed together in the corner. "In total, over your career." I stopped counting at 200. I felt her tense beside me. "Does that change things?" "No." A pause. "Does my answer change things for you?" "What's your count?" "I do not know precisely." "Approximately 90, confirmed." "Perhaps more." "Then no. It doesn't change things." We sat with that for a while, two killers in a bunker, keeping each other warm. "I have been thinking," she said eventually, "about what happens when this ends. The war, our situation, this bunker, this." She gestured vaguely between us. "Arrangement. I've been trying not to think about it. That is not a luxury I can afford." She shifted to look at me. "When we are found, if we are found, by either side, this will end. You will be a prisoner again or a liberated soldier. I will be a prisoner, or dead. The mathematics are clear." "Stop talking about mathematics." "I cannot. It is how I process uncertainty." Her secondary eyelids flickered. "But I find myself uncertain about aspects that mathematics cannot address, specifically about what this has become, between us." I knew what she was asking. I've been asking myself the same thing for days. When did my enemy stop being my enemy? When did my captor become my protector? When did the woman who'd shivered in the cold to give me her blanket become the woman I couldn't imagine leaving behind? "I don't know what this is," I said honestly. "I know I'd die for you. I know you almost died for me. I know I trust you more than I've trusted anyone since my squad. And I know that when they find us, I'm going to fight like hell to make sure you survive it. Even against your own people? Even then." She was quiet. Then she reached up and touched my face, her four-fingered hand cool and careful against my cheek. It was the first time she'd touched me without medical purpose, the first time she'd reached for me instead of responding to a necessity. "Among my people," she said softly. "Velthira. It translates imperfectly to your language. Something between soul-recognized and heart-bound. It occurs rarely, usually between those who have shared extreme circumstances. Battle. Loss. Die. Survival against odds. What does it mean? For the people who experience it, they become essential to each other. Not ownership, not dependency. Recognition that another soul has become integral to your own." Her thumb traced my cheekbone. I did not believe in Velthira. I considered it a cultural superstition, a romanticization of trauma bonding. Until I carried you through artillery fire and felt my own heart rebel at the thought of leaving you behind. That's a hell of a confession. I'm aware. She let her hand drop. I expect nothing in return. I merely wished you to understand why I will not accept any outcome that separates us, even if the mathematics suggest otherwise. I caught her hand before she could pull it away entirely. "I'm not going to be separated from you either." I met her silver eyes in the darkness. I don't know what the Valorian word for that is. I just know that I spent 6 years watching people I love die, and somewhere in the last 5 days, you became one of the people I love. So whatever happens when they find us, we face it together. She blinked, both sets of eyelids, and I realized with a start that she was crying. Silver tears, tracking down silver blue skin. "I was your captor. You were also the person who gave me your blanket every night." I wiped her tears away with my thumb. "Captors don't do that." "No," she agreed. "They do not. They found us on the 5th day. Human forces, sweeping for survivors and enemy holdouts. 4 soldiers burst through the bunker door with weapons drawn, shouting the usual commands about hands and movement. Velrin had her sidearm up before I could stop her. "Don't shoot!" I threw myself in front of her, stupid, with my leg still healing. But instinct doesn't care about stupidity. "Hold your fire. She's not hostile. Sergeant, move!" The squad leader, young, scared, exactly as scared as the patrol Velrin had killed. That's a Valorian officer. She's the reason I'm alive. I didn't lower my arms. She saved my life 3 times. She went through a combat zone to get me medicine. She hasn't slept in 2 days because she was watching over me. You want her, you go through me. The soldiers hesitated. Behind me, I felt Velrin's hand on my back. Gentle, steadying. Marcus. Her voice was quiet. This is inadvisable. Shut up. I didn't look away from the squad leader. What's your name, soldier? Corporal Hansen, sir. 7th Infantry, Recovery Detail. Well, Corporal Hansen, here's what's going to happen. You're going to lower your weapons. You're going to call your CO and report that you found Sergeant Marcus Cole, survivor of the Defiant crash, along with Valorian Commander Sitha Velrin, who took me prisoner, kept me alive, and saved my life multiple times over the past 5 days. You're going to request guidance on how to handle a situation that's not in your manual. And while you're waiting for that guidance, nobody's going to get shot. Clear? Hansen looked at his squad mates. They looked at him. Then, slowly, he lowered his rifle. Get the CO on comms. It took 3 hours to sort out. 3 hours of explanations, verifications, arguments with increasingly higher ranks up the chain of command. 3 hours with Velrin kneeling beside me, hands on her head, while soldiers who wanted to kill her held their fire because I refused to move away from her. By the time Colonel Reyes arrived in person, the word had come down from command. The Valorian sovereignty had surrendered. The war was over. This is irregular, Reyes said, looking at us. The wounded human sergeant and the enemy commander pressed together in a filthy bunker. You understand that, Sergeant Cole. She's an enemy officer. She killed 4 of our people getting you medicine. And she saved my life. Multiple times. I met his eyes. What happens to her? Prisoner of war. Processing, detention, eventually repatriation once we sort out the surrender terms. Reyes studied Velrin's face, unless she has information that warrants alternative handling. She's not a source. I heard my voice harden. She's a person. A person who showed me more humanity than most humans I know. If you're going to treat her like an asset to be extracted, you're going to have a problem with me. Is that a threat, Sergeant? It's a statement of fact. I pushed myself upright, ignoring the pain in my leg. She's not leaving my sight. You want to court-martial me for that, go ahead. But you're not separating us. Reyes looked at me for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. You know, I've read about this. Velthera, the Valorians call it. Their high command's been trying to figure out why some of their people come back from human contact. Changed. He shook his head. Never thought I'd see it from our side. Is that a problem? Honestly? I don't know. He turned to his aide. Process Commander Velrin as a protected prisoner. Keep her with Sergeant Cole. Medical says he needs constant monitoring anyway, and something tells me she's been doing that job just fine. 3 months later, I stood at a window in the new embassy complex, watching Sitha argue with a bureaucrat about repatriation paperwork. Her silver-blue skin caught the afternoon light, and she was gesturing with all 4 hands, which meant she was either very angry or very frustrated. Probably both. The War Crimes Tribunal had cleared her. The patrol she'd killed had opened fire first. Self-defense was documented and verified. Her treatment of me as a prisoner had been exemplary by any standard, more than exemplary given the blanket situation. When I testified about that, about the commander who'd given me her own warmth to keep me alive, the panel had gone silent. Valorians, it turned out, weren't supposed to do that. Taking heat from their own bodies for a prisoner wasn't just kindness. It was dangerous, a sacrifice that could have damaged her internal temperature regulation permanently. She'd never told me that part. You're staring again. Sitha appeared beside me. Paperwork apparently resolved. It is disconcerting. You never told me about the blanket. What it cost you, it cost nothing. Velrin. She sighed, her secondary eyelids flickering. It cost some minor temperature regulation capability. Nothing significant. You were dying of cold, Marcus. The mathematics were simple. The mathematics are never simple with you. I turned to face her fully. You almost hurt yourself to keep me warm. Yes. She met my eyes without flinching. And I would do it again. You were mine to protect, Even then, even when I did not understand what that meant, I thought about the bunker, about the fevered dreams and the shared warmth, and the moment when she touched my face and told me about Velthira. I thought about the word she'd used. Mine. Not possession. Recognition. The paperwork's cleared, she said. I am officially a diplomatic consultant attached to the Human Reconciliation Mission. It appears I will be remaining here for some time. That's convenient. I thought so. She was trying to suppress a smile. I'd learned to read her well enough to see it now. The subtle shift in her features that meant she was pleased about something. It made her look younger, softer. We should discuss living arrangements, I said. Since you're staying, yes. Her secondary eyelids flickered. We should. I have a small apartment near the medical center. Nothing fancy, but it's a good heating system. Heating is acceptable. She paused. Does this apartment have blankets? I laughed. A real laugh. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and true. Plenty of blankets. Then I believe, she said slowly, that I would find the arrangement acceptable. We stood there in the afternoon light, watching the city rebuild itself around us. Human and Valorian workers side by side, cleaning up the rubble of a war that had taken so much from both of us. Somewhere out there, her family was dead. My squad was dead. All those ghosts following us into a future neither of us had expected to see. But she was here. And then I was here. And maybe that was enough to start with. Hey. I reached over and took her hand. Thank you. For what? The blanket. I squeezed her fingers. Every night. Her hand tightened around mine. You were cold, she said simply. And you were mine. Even then. Even then. 5 years later, when someone asked me how I met my wife, I told them the truth. I was her prisoner of war, and she gave me her blanket every night. They never quite believed me. But Scytha would be there beside me, her silver skin catching the light, and she would say, in that dry, precise voice I'd fallen in love with in a freezing bunker, the mathematics were simple. He was cold. I had a blanket. Everything that followed was merely inevitable. It wasn't inevitable. It was a choice, made over and over again, every time she gave up her warmth for me. Every time I threw myself between her and a weapon. Every time we refused to let the universe separate what circumstance had brought together. Love isn't mathematics, whatever she claims. But it is recognition. It's looking at someone across a war zone, across a bunker floor, across a diplomatic reception, and knowing, this one is mine. This one, I will not lose. This one gave me her blanket, even when she was cold. And I've spent every day since trying to return the favor. The end.
Wenn ihr unten auf das Zahnrad geht, da könnt ihr einstellen, das mit Untertitel.
Ja, du Schafsäckel.
Ja, hab ich schon gesehen. Was ist denn los?
Abenteuer USA beginnt für Sie.
Er ist Fahrlehrer.
So, quasi auch. Was darfst du alles fahren lassen? Also was darfst du ausbilden? Fahren lassen?
Darf ich mal fragen, warum du da nicht Auto fährst? Sage mal, du bist doch Profi.
Nee, ich sitze doch immer neben dran. Ich fahre doch nie.
Fahren kann er gar nicht.
Ich kann nicht fahren. Ich gebe nur meine Kommentare vom Beifahrersitz.
Ja.
Ich wollte sagen, wo ist schon am Führerschein gefragt oder das ist so?
Das wird völlig überbewertet, ey, selber fahren.
Außerdem ist er noch nie schneller wie 30 km/h gefahren.
Ja, immer nur auf dem Parkplatz oder Übungsplatz drin. Ne? Nee, fahren darf ich alles außer LKW und Bus.
Wenn er sein Auto verkauft, kann er schreiben 4., 5. Gang.
Taupunkte
6.
hier,
Gang,
14, 15.
Genau,
Das sind die
5.
aktuellen
Gang
Taupunkte bei uns. 11, 13, 14. Vereinzelt mal ein 15er.